Missed all the good stuff. Damn. I missed all the good dialogue. I think this is a serious thing. So.
That's outside of my skill set.
I'm not that hard to deal with.
All my old hits from last decade.
What?
My old hits from the last decade. Are you able to like keep in frame, or is it just me?
To do what?
To keep in frame.
I don't know. My hat keeps sliding up.
Your hat.
Yeah, it starts here and it goes all the way up.
Yeah, it does do the cone thing. Like you end up with the cone hat thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a few more minutes left.
Chief Spees.
Mm-hmm.
The IT guy to your left.
Okay.
So that's everybody, I think.
Everybody, there's no fire chief.
I mean, I think that's everybody that they're gonna bring.
Hmm. And I think Wendy is ill,
Yeah.
so my back, everything is hurting.
I'm gonna have to do that to you.
We have some bone fragments from the dog's treat in your hat.
Really?
I took it
have
out.
it on. I didn't even have it on
They
the
can
bed.
hear our conversation.
I didn't have it on the bed because I didn't want to get brutalized by your daughter.
Oh my God. I have one daughter. I have one daughter. What does that say? Do we have JPEGs of the social media graphics?
Which ones?
I think it could be a number of things. It could be related to the corporate campaign. It could be related to the small business campaign. It could be related to actions leading up to May Day. It could be related to somebody else's shit. Because they come in and they talk to each other and nobody else knows what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, it's interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So.
I'm just straightening that because it was like this.
God forbid that it should be twisted.
Just do it upside down.
Don't forget that corner to the right is the important corner, because that's the legal counsel and the city planner. Yeah. So zoning and things like that. It's a little bit fuzzy. I think there's
It's in
something.
my hand.
No. Oh, it is because of your hand. Okay. That was so weird. You know what it made me think of?
What?
What if we had technology that you could deploy so that when a camera is pointed at you, it grays it out. It blurs it so you can't be seen. Get on that.
Okay.
Research.
Done.
Thank you for the like. I don't know why I have to I can't get the whole frame. Do we have to sit back further to get that?
Do you have everyone?
Like the entire thing?
Yeah, or move it sideways.
I hate sideways, and if you do sideways, it's gonna be sideways for everyone because I started it upright. It doesn't self-adjust. No fraternization with the what was fraternization again? Was it like lieutenants with the enlisted?
Fraternization is it's any officer. There was a guy that actually lived across the hall from me.
Hi. Lived across the hall from you where?
When I was in the barracks
Which
And he-
country?
in Germany when I first got there, and
I think
he was
it's
married
quiet in
to
the
an
room,
Air
dear.
Force
Like
sergeant.
situational awareness. I think it's quiet in the room.
Nothing to do with me, but he was
I
married to.
understand, baby. They're listening to what we are saying. Recording it. Oh, you have to just tell the story, don't you? They'll hear it.
Married to an Air Force sergeant, and they tried to give him an Article 15.
What was his rank?
He was an E4, and she was an E5, but they'd all been married before and dating.
They were married before they enlisted?
Yeah,
Well, he enlisted and she. Okay.
Yeah.
So what happened? They got charged?
No, they tried to give him an Article 15.
Who?
The unit that I was in,
Why?
because they're like, that's fraternization,
No.
and you've been hiding it.
What?
And then he's like, no, we're already married.
Did they go to
And
JAG?
then they're like, oh, okay.
Did they
never
go
mind."
to JAG?
No, they didn't.
Ridiculous.
She came, and she ended up getting stationed in Germany right after him. And then her command went over and was like, this BS. He got promoted like a month after that anyway.
So they were both sergeants?
Yeah. And the weird thing is they weren't in the same unit. They weren't even in the same, like she was in the Air Force.
Yeah.
But
She's Air Force, he's Army. How is it fraternization? It's not in the same branch.
yeah, I think that when I was in the joint environment,
Looks
that was a
like the
little different.
mayor's, what is that called? Remote?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the city manager's over there. And then the chief, and the council members, and then the city planner and the city attorney, and the mayor.
Yeah, if you're ready, just go ahead and let them know you're ready.
All right, we're ready to go. Is Lloyd? Well, ready to go. Hello, everyone, and everyone that's watching it at home. We're gonna get the work session started February 4th, 2026. Let the record show that all council members are present. Mayor Webster is visiting via Zoom. We also have our city attorney, Jay Lundgren, and also our Steve Brickman, our planning commission. And so tonight's
He's a city
topic
planner.
will be on law enforcement and immigration. And so I'm gonna kick it over to Charlie to get us started with that.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So, this work session is stemming from Council's desire to discuss some immigration enforcement activities and what actions the city, could take in relation to that. So, we got some guidance from the city attorney on the specific topics that Council brought up to look into. Those are kind of summarized in the memo here, as well as mention of some other things that have come up in listening sessions and other cities have talked about, so the council can discuss those as well. So just to kind of briefly summarize the memo that you have in front of you, which stems from the memo from our city attorney. So what we have is what we labeled kind of regulatory topics that the council's asked to have some research done on, and what those consist of is some kind of a separation ordinance similar to other cities. How do
He has his glasses on today, so he's
regulate the law an eviction or foreclosure moratorium, or a towing or towing fee moratorium. So just to run through those in summary here. So a separation ordinance, so some cities are considering this, and the city could certainly consider adopting an ordinance that restricts the use of city parks and parking lots to specific related uses only. Of course, passing any kind of ordinance would take some time, and we do have some regulatory avenues in place already for use of the park itself, not so much the lots. And some communities have posted signage to expressly state these things in other communities as well. So while the city can regulate this, the advice we've got is doing so in a manner that specifically mentions one specific federal agency would likely not survive a legal challenge. And in addition to that, even if it was in place, the enforceability of it would be really problematic, and our ability to actually affect what the objective would really be. So with that, staff's recommendation would be, not to go down that route, simply because of the legal risk that's possible there. And really, when it comes down to it, we would not be able to effectively enforce it for what the desired outcome is. So along those same lines, items of requiring law enforcement to notify us of their presence in the community, or to wear body cameras, or on the inverse, prohibiting law enforcement officials from wearing masks. This would be along the same lines. Now we get into areas of intergovernmental immunity, which I'll defer to other smarter people to talk about the details of that. But it would really, when it comes to staff's perspective, it's really the same as the separation ordinance. There may well be ways to write this into ordinance and establish it. The question becomes, can we actually effectively enforce it? And with both of these items, is putting this kind of thing in place, set an expectation in the community that we as a city or a police department can't fulfill. Does that create even more frustration? Does that break down trust? So moving on to the topic of an eviction moratorium. That is something where a city hall just simply doesn't have the legal authority to step into a private contractual arrangement. However, we do know that there is discussions at the state level of perhaps enacting something similar to what happened during the pandemic to help provide assistance that way. So perhaps that's something that the city or city council could help support and sign on to try to help and assistance from that level. And then lastly, on the kind of regulatory side of things, a towing or towing fee moratorium. So the memo kind of lists out what's already.
The chief is laughing like he's never seen a phone or anyone film because they're assholes, just so
We
you
would
know.
support doing a moratorium on towing because we need to get cars off the street or out of the right of way. If they're effectively abandoned, it just creates another safety issue. It could create a snow removal issue this time of year, but something that the city council could consider is along the lines of more of the fee moratorium, which for us would mean subsidizing the cost of the tow and storage. Any kind of fees that people would get here in St. Anthony are not our fees, is directly with the towing company, but it's something the city council could consider. We have to put a lot of parameters around that to specify when it's used, when it's not used, try to figure out how much money you want to set aside for that. That's not in the budget currently, but it is an option you could consider. So then, the other items were really more of a community support in nature. So going back to that, additional official statements from the city council, advocacy by the council and the city in general at higher levels of government to help affect the issue, coordination with other local agencies, continued engagement with community members impacted by the immigration enforcement activities, town hall style programs, or perhaps joining in and supporting legal action in process by other agencies. And that's one other item that is additionally referenced in the memo from the city attorney of how to go about participating in that if you so choose. So that's just a quick summary of what you have in front of you. I'll send it back to council to discuss and whatever order you like.
Thanks, John. I looked over this, and I have issues with this on so many levels. But I want to start with council first. Who would like to go? Jan?
Thank you. I just want to share the lens on how I would be looking at all this work that we have in front of us tonight. On last week, Thursday, on January 29th, I attended a meeting in the middle Zoom meeting, which consisted of about 15 different cities that discussed things that they were doing. Basically, what they were talking about is how the communities were working to help one another get food, drive people to locations that they needed to get to. But there wasn't any discussion about any type of restrictive ordinances with ICE. And then the next day, on January 30th in the morning, I attended the Ramsey County Local League of Governments Town Hall meeting that was hosted by the office of our federal representative, Betty McCollum, who is a Democrat. In her place, though, was Charlie Hammond and Rebecca Taylor. And essentially, they discussed, the serious actions of homeland security and border security and what can be done. And what they were emphatic about is that, cities cannot stop ICE actions, and that any restrictive actions will violate the intergovernmental immunity. And this possibly could be seen as to violate the Insurrection Act. So what they did recommend, though, is, if you're attending any group protests, photograph the actions that are taking place and send it to the ACLU so that it can be effectively or efficiently archived. So that's where I'm going to be looking at this information in front of us from that perspective.
Okay, thanks, Jan. Anyone else? Councilmember Dillon?
Thank you for time. I attended the same discussion at Ramsey County Local League of Governments, and they did talk about when people who are exercising legal rights of constitutional observing and other forms of legal protest, how you actually can, from a state or a city perspective, affect a legal enforcement was challenging, and they talked about, the one most effective thing is going to be having constitutional observers and continuing to create evidence that can be recorded and documented and used in the court systems and to influence legislators. So I also, from looking at the memo that's been prepared by our attorney and hearing that, I also am of the opinion that from a legal, what can we achieve and accomplish? I'm not sure policy is the thing that's going to be effective, but they also talked about community is going to be the thing that draws attention and makes change, and I think that we have seen that in some of the information that's getting out and people observing what's happening to people who are exercising their constitutional rights. I think that's a changing opinion. We have a lot of opinion to be changed, I think, but at least something's moving. It's not enough, but something is, I hope, starting to move.
I got one last thing I'd like to add. One thing that they also talked about at that town hall meeting is that
we should just observe.
reform or ICE reform.
We have no
basically,
powers.
It has to happen at the Congress level in order to be fully effective.
That wasn't opinion, that was fact. Just so you know, he's bringing that over like that was fact and that wasn't just opinion.
Councilmember Nutty?
I think it's gonna come as a surprise to no one that I disagree. I'm frustrated. It feels as though we're approaching this situation from sort of a status quo. We're considering an ordinance in front of us. Would it pass legal muster, yes or no? And we are forgetting that we are not operating in the status quo. Nothing that is happening now, nothing that's coming out of the federal government, they're not playing by the rules. It's confusing to me why we are so insistent upon making sure we do not step even a toe out of line. From my perspective, aggressive behavior calls for an aggressive response. If we're looking at the separation ordinances that exist already, of which there are a not insignificant number, I mean, at least 2 in Minnesota and then 3 in New York, a couple other states. What they're doing, functionally speaking, is codifying what the city already has authority over, right? So they're not saying the feds can't do X, Y, and Z. They're saying, here's what we're gonna allow on our city property and from our employees. And we can sit here and say that that effectively means nothing. But I think what is more true is that we have actually no idea what impact it could have. But no matter, even if it's the smallest amount, the fact that we're contemplating doing nothing is kind of horrifying to me. We have to try. Silence is complicity, neutrality is agreement. We cannot agree with what is happening in our city right now. And what we're essentially saying is, and I mean this with no disrespect, we're saying, residents, it's on you. You do the hard work. We're not gonna do it because we're not allowed to do it. So we're gonna have you be the constitutional observers. We're gonna have you send the evidence. We're gonna have you put yourself at risk because we don't want to. And that's just real icky. From my perspective, I think at the very least that we could do is make our position known. Consider it a show of force. And if the concern is federal backlash, please help me understand how it can get worse. They're already in our town, they're already taking our residents, they're already murdering our neighbors in the street with impunity. What are we afraid is gonna happen? I think that there are a lot of avenues that we can approach this with, the bare minimum being codifying what we're gonna allow in our property, if for no other reason than our residents know exactly where we stand, what we will not allow. But more than that, I think we can follow, Mankato is a good example. Mankato has directed their city attorney to draft an ordinance that would limit the use of masks, that would require all law enforcement agencies to appropriately identify themselves, and and that they all must wear a body-worn camera. At a bare minimum, we can do that. That's not regulating federal enforcement, that's stating standards for what we consider appropriate conduct by law enforcement agencies of all kinds. We've talked about this, file an amicus brief. The Attorney General, along with Minneapolis and St. Paul, have filed a suit against the Trump administration to sort of end Operation Metro Surge. We can join that. We can, I just don't want us, I'm so frustrated that it feels like we're sitting here from a place of no, and I'm convincing you to say yes. It really feels like now is the time, if there is ever a time, to get to yes however we can. And I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you, Councilman. And I guess it's going to make anyone no surprise that I disagree. Trying to restrict ICE from coming into the city will bring liability on us. I'm almost certain of that, legal liability. And never in a million years would I ask our police officers to stand in front of ICE or in federal officers doing their job. I would never have our officers do that. It's wrong, in my opinion. I wouldn't do it.
He's a moron.
It doesn't stop ICE. I mean, fairly by law, they have that right. Now, I'm not saying that we can't, educate people, show them where to go, show them who to talk to, show them whatever we
So
want to
out
show.
of touch.
But I think it's
So
just
out of
wrong for us to get in front of ICE and to put our police in that situation, get in between federal law
The beliefs in the
and this.
Constitution.
I just think it's not the right thing to do. And staff can't enforce this. So we can't put this on staff, to try to enforce this. And I know tempers are high, temperatures are high, but I think we all need to take a step back and actually see what's going on. And I'm not the one that
Disgrace.
says that I watch news every day.
Obviously.
If I didn't see it every day, I wouldn't believe it. I don't believe half of what I even see or hear.
Wow.
So, I mean, I get emails, you know, from residents saying I'm naive. This is going on, this is going on.
He's incompetent. That's different from being naive.
Hysteria. So where now, I don't even know what's right and what's wrong, or who's doing what and who's not doing what. And so, I prefer to stay on the side of protecting St. Anthony and protecting us. This ordinance that, who says that we have to copy or mimic everything that Minneapolis does? We're not Minneapolis, we don't have the resources, we don't have the police force. We just don't have what other big cities have. And so I'm just vehemently against this. I mean, I am.
He doesn't know what
And
he's
so
against. He doesn't watch
and
the
from what I can
news. He
understand,
doesn't know
it
what's
has not
going
worked
on,
in other cities.
but he's against
And
it.
if I'm wrong, someone please tell me I'm wrong. But from what I understand, it has not worked in other cities. And so we're a small city. I haven't heard anyone come to me except for what I got an email from a
This is
resident
why he's
saying,
here.
"You're naive, you're all over St. Anthony." I haven't heard that. And that's why I can't believe, that's all. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. That's why I don't believe. I have to see with my own eyes. Because
Absolutely incompetent. He doesn't even know what hyperbolic
I don't know
means.
what to believe. Do I
tell him
believe
to
that
spell
I
it.
should run rampant all over St. Anthony? No, I don't. If it had been, I would have heard something from someone. But I am not willing to put our office in front of that. I'm just not.
So he also said he doesn't agree with the listening sessions.
Good evening. I'm of the mindset of,
This is the mayor on Zoom.
what can we do? And in my mind, I keep thinking about, I'm concerned about our most vulnerable residents, which right now are Black and brown residents. And I'm thinking about, where does the city have authority and what can the city enforce? And so we asked a lot of questions and we got some feedback about where our authority is and what is enforceable. But I'm curious if we can also focus our discussion on what are things that we can do to help protect our most vulnerable residents.
Thank you. Councilmember Lewis.
Mayor Pro Tem. So by saying I don't support this particular language, I'm not saying I don't think we should do that.
No.
I think there are a lot of things we can do. I have been in
right in the fence.
not just in the metro area, but in outstate. And there's really good discussions, and I think there's opportunity for us to collaborate. The county's just started coming out with positions, and they are asking council members to support those positions, and I have already signed on to that. I think that one of the questions I have about Minneapolis and St. Paul's ordinances, and I understand why they're doing this, but I wonder how effective are they? It has not stopped ICE from going into their communities.
That's not the point.
So that's a question that I have.
Can I respond to that one real quick? I think that we're operating from our base presumption, we're on different pages here.
Mm.
It feels like we're having a discussion where half the council is saying we cannot stop ICE from entering the city of St. Anthony. Correct, accurate, no one disagrees with that fact, statement of fact. What I am saying and what these ordinances are saying are not the police are gonna kick ICE out if they do X, Y, and Z. Again, think of it as a show of force. What is and is not acceptable behavior from our perspective for our residents. What are the boundaries that we're gonna set? What are we gonna say, this is not okay here? This is not, and I'm not sure what we're envisioning, where ICE is staging on city property, which we can't really stop them from doing. We can create broad sort of parameters around who can stage what, so we could limit, right? Anybody who uses a vehicle, for example, right? That sort of a limit. And so you're envisioning that our police officers go up to an ICE vehicle that is on city property and what is gonna happen? And if we're worried that ICE is going to have a physical response, like shoot our cops down, and obviously, I don't want that to happen, but sort of how dare we say that the people with Kevlar vests and guns aren't the ones to do it, but the people with phones who are recording are. Right, that's what we're doing, right? That's what we're saying, is that it's not tenable for our police officers to do it, but it is tenable for our residents. And that feels insane. And what we're doing is passing ordinances on what we can regulate, which is city property and usage and city employees. We are not saying ICE cannot do X, Y, and Z. Dear God, if that was possible, everybody would have already said it and ICE would not be here. We cannot say that. But I don't think there should be a limit on what avenues we take, what stances we put out there, what show of force we are willing to give.
I have a
I
question.
want to step in real quick. See, that part of fire, fighting fire with fire is what worries me. That,
What do you mean? When I say show of force, I'm using it sort of as an analogy, right? Like we're stating our position.
Break it down.
It's considered a moral show of force, if not a physical one.
Councilmember Jensen.
If we implemented this ordinance about separation, and we say that a city parking lot, where we don't have garages here, it's small, how do you word it so
Public
that
Works has a huge garage.
you're not discriminating against ICE? I don't think that this does that, in my mind. Is that right?
That is an excellent question, and that is why we have legal counsel working for us. I could propose language, but we still have to discuss, like, there are ways. That's why we have counsel, to do those things for us. And you can say that this doesn't, I mean, these are up for, the Trump administration is challenging the separation ordinances that exist, but they haven't, one seat's already been thrown out, the other ones aren't anticipating going anywhere. Yes, there are legal risks, yes, but there are risks to loss of life as well. Like, what is, take a legal risk? What's worth it? Sorry,
Mr.
one more.
Lundgren, please.
I'm interpreting the question I should answer here, but I think I do think that one of the most legally defensible positions you could take is to neutrally say that there is no assembly allowed on city property except for following things. You know, permitted people going to use the park, birthday party for grandchildren. So in other words, you can neutrally say that no police assembly is allowed on, right? So I do think that is a defensible legal position because you're controlling the use of your property, which is within your bounds as the primary provider of local health and safety. Okay, so that's just the legality of it. The next question obviously is one that's beyond my role, is the enforcement of it. And that's where I think you go to next. What does that mean? Does that mean if it is used for an improper thing, that you enforce it, and can you enforce it? And I'll leave that up to you. But I do think you would be within your legal bounds to neutrally, and we have to get to what the actual words are. But so you wouldn't say officers of Department of Homeland Security are not allowed. You'd say no officers
Okay,
are allowed.
then, okay, what if something breaks off at that particular point? And our officer can't come say someone was in an emergency or had something up there at the same point.
Now we're at the what
And
ifs.
they're saying no officer. So what happens then, if our officer can't get in? Are you
What
going to
if?
apply to our officers as well?
Yeah, and again, that's why I separated it in two pieces, because now you're into question of what are the policy ramifications if you were to do what I say I think passes muster,
Okay.
right? I mean, because I think it does raise challenges. Now, I think it's about assembly and a gathering, not necessarily about enforcement, right? I mean,
Okay.
you'd have to write it that way, that yes, you always have to allow your police force to enter any place where they're legally allowed to enter. But this is about assembly, it seems to me, is what you're really trying to say, about staging. I think the only way to stay out of the policy, because obviously I have strong feelings. I'm a Minnesotan too, you know. I also live 3 blocks from Minneapolis, right? But my point is this, is that if your first step is to decide, do we want to do what's within our legal authority and our legal bounds? And then you decide how much more you want to push beyond that. I mean, neutrally prohibiting assembly, I think, is a or staging is a defensible position. Whether it's good policy or not, that's up to you.
Mayor Pro Tem, can I ask Mr. Lindgren a question?
Yes, ma'am.
That's the
Thank you. Mr. Lindgren,
I'm talking to the chat.
in light of what the city has authority of, we could shut down all of for a period of time, we could shut down all the parking lots of all of our parks, to any community member, for a time being. I believe we would have authority around that. Is that correct?
Yes, I would say, I mean, in simple terms, yes, because you get to decide what is important to the health and safety of this community, and you need to apply it fairly and universally. If you decided no one should use the parks for some period of time, I think that's within your legal authority.
Thank you.
I have a question or comment. When I was at that meeting at the town hall meeting, Roseville came on just to say that they were going down the separation path as well, and then they decided that in order to make it very effective, they'd have to not allow anybody to use the parking lot or park. And otherwise it would be considered, they thought, discriminatory against ICE. So that's what our next door neighbor is doing, at least as of last Friday.
Anyone else?
Mayor Pro Tem, if I could, we do have our police chief here, and I
Yeah.
think the concern over the vast majority of the questions that we've gotten from residents have been about the extent of police response and what it looks like. You brought up your main concern is that you're willing to put officers in unnecessarily risky.
Well,
It's not a risky,
It goes a little
risky
deeper than that,
situation.
but yeah.
Oh, did I have to log
So
into
then,
my meeting?
let's stop speculating, and let's ask the question.
Whatever.
Would you, do you have issues with enforcing the no assembly on city grounds?
I have a lot of hesitation with that. And I can explain it in good detail to you. So what we've already talked about so far, I've heard, I think this is okay, or there's legal issues with this, there's risks. And as a police department, regardless of what any other police department does, whether they're state, local, or federal, we can't necessarily operate out of what's the moral thing to do. We have to follow what the laws are. That's where we get our legitimacy from. That's what we swear an oath to. So whether we like the laws or we don't like the laws, I think all of our residents appreciate that we follow the law. We are apolitical.
I can say that that's not true, and I'm a resident.
Authority to deviate from that, even if we want to. So there's two things. We have, can we pass a policy and how do we enforce it? I don't know any city that's passed it that's put their police in charge of managing any potential violations.
He's
of that
distorting
ordinance.
what's being said.
And I was trying to wrap my head around this and really trying to articulate well the position that local law enforcement has been placed in. And I look at this as a sliding scale of where our authority starts and where it ends. And it starts, and I can give you some examples of lawful behavior that we could do when it comes to dealing with federal immigration or whether it's immigration or any other federal authority. We can be passive observers. If somebody calls us and there is federal immigration in the area and they're concerned about safety, we can passively observe, just the same way that any of our residents can do that. We can document. We can provide a legal review after the fact. So if somebody does call and they think that their rights were violated, we can take a report, we can.
He's
interview,
coughing on
we
that
can take
bullshit.
information, and we've gotten recently legal guidance from our county
He
attorney.
went
on
into the
how to do
audio
that.
room.
We can decline to assist federal law or immigration enforcement. We can intercede when a federal agent's not acting within the scope of their duties. So if there's a federal agent that's not acting within the scope of their duties, they're off duty, they're speeding, they're blocking someone with the rest of the DWI. That doesn't mean there's complete immunity to state law, but when they are acting under the scope of their duty, on duty as a federal officer enforcing immigration, we can't intervene with that. And then there's the gray area. Shadowing or following federal agents. Selective enforcement. I've gotten phone calls about, we've got residents and we've got county attorneys that don't want us stopping vehicles for window tint or for expired tabs or other things, vehicle violations, and now they want selective enforcement when it comes to just federal agents that are in the scope of their duty. Am I intervening? Am I obstructing a federal
Within
agent
the scope of their duty is key.
selectively stopping their vehicles? Maybe not, but it opens up the risk for any one of our cops. And we've seen
Selectively
residents
stopping
who
their
have
vehicles,
followed
but they're the ones
ICE
that are
agents
breaking the law.
and been
Correct.
arrested for that.
So
We are
you're
not immune from that
selectively
either.
stopping
So
criminals.
if we're committing those same acts,
Instead
we
of
could be
people who are
arrested,
obeying
or
laws.
we could have a complaint filed on us after the fact. And I think with the way the temperature is
You
right
don't
now,
worry about complaints when you're targeting your black and brown residents.
could be, obviously more relevant for us. And then the outwardly unlawful acts, physically interfering, detaining or arresting an ICE agent that's acting within the scope of their duties.
Acting within the scope of their duties.
Blocking them, interfering with evidence, we can't do those things, and we won't.
No
do those
one's
things.
asking you to
And as a
do
police
that.
chief, we have a policy that says specifically that we cannot order our police officers to do something that would violate policy or violate the law. And they have an obligation. The same way they have an
We
obligation.
know for a fact.
They have an obligation
Practice.
to not follow an order that violates those.
Yeah, they still do.
So, and that's a difficult position that we're being placed in right now, is you pass an ordinance that really is unsettled, there's unsettled law on that. whether
You
that's
do
legal
that
or
all the
not.
time.
We place ourselves in a
Dog
position
ordinance.
to have a confrontation with federal agents.
Sheds.
That really puts us in that gray area.
Retaining
where we
walls.
violating. We could be obstructing or intervening.
Oh,
or
silly ordinances.
intervening.
Limiting dog numbers.
And now all
They're
my
not
cops are
worried
getting
about
summons to appear in front of court.
How many
That can't
ordinances
happen.
are broken
So
at our house?
we'll do and are willing to do as much as we can under state law and local law. But in my opinion, this having us enforce that is the wrong way of doing it. And I would expect that our police officers would have a lot of questions about being asked to do that.
He just said a whole bunch of nothing.
And I think there's a reason why every other city that's passed it that I'm aware of, and I'm not aware of all of them, but the ones that I am, that the local law enforcement is not enforcing those ordinances.
And in St. Peter, the chief intervened.
I think I wanna just be clear by us having these discussions and having perspective. Does not mean we're negating the fear that's in the community and the responsibility we want to take to help protect our community as much as we can. When I think about these kind of things, some of the questions I ask myself, what actions will be the most effective in protecting our community? How do we balance our official position with our personal perspective? What is governance and what is activism? What's performative? And sure, it would feel great to be able to say, we want to take a hard stand. What's performative versus what's really effective?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I think about foremost to no harm, right? I know that there's a neighboring community that has chosen explicitly not to do this because they have such a fear in their community and people.
They have a a fear in that community of standing up against abductions of their citizens and residents.
And I understand that there's different ways that we can look at this. But I wanna be careful to look at the legal frameworks, what we can pass, what we can enforce. I was listening to a council discussion last night, it was out of state, and they
Can
were
you hold
talking
this,
about,
dear?
they felt it was important to do something.
If I go
To state that
off of
their
this,
position is they are in support of Minneapolis
I
and
need,
St. Paul.
I
And
need
it is
Wi-Fi.
not just a city
I need
problem.
Wi-Fi.
They talked about
That's
what's
okay.
occurring in their city, and they actually put forth a resolution that talked about what they
They'll
want,
send me the recording.
how they wanna be welcomed
They'll
and
send me
engaged
the
in
recording.
Then they also went forward and said, recognizing that
Just looking.
there's value in more and more and more communities stepping forward and doing this. They said, we want, and recognizing that council process takes time, and things are dynamically changing so quickly. They chose to pass, I don't know what, if it's resolution or they asked to have their city manager and their city attorney be authorized to actually take part and move forward when other cities or when counties are doing something, so that they actually have the ability to do that. They're not gonna wait for council to have discussions and make decisions, and I fully support that, because I think there are so many things that are coming together right now.
She's
and
giving
for
more
us
power to
sign on
council, though. I
to
don't
things
like
where
that.
we can partner and have a stronger
Instead of
position.
voting.
Wholeheartedly support that. I do wanna also though, Chief, talk to you about concerns that we're hearing from our community. And it's more around, I think it's really important for, we understand you have limitations. But I think if people could understand what they could expect from calling for help, and what the police, they can expect from a police. Because one of the other things that I've seen in other communities, they are choosing to use this as an opportunity to really strengthen their policing partnership. There are some cities that have done an awesome job. Their police have come out and put on their website and talked about it so that their communities understands what they can expect, and using it as an opportunity to really strengthen that community building. So, can you talk to us about what can you do when responding to calls for help from residents?
Well, it doesn't change whether we're, in the times we're in, or, 2 years ago. If someone in our community
Mayor
is,
Pro Tem, can I interrupt?
No, he's the one that's gonna say
It's really
nothing.
difficult to hear Chief Spees. Spees, can you try talking directly into the microphone? It may be a technical issue or may.
Thank you.
okay, is that better?
Is that better?
I think she's on mute.
All right,
Can you hear me now?
I'm happy to change with you. People can hear me down here.
all right.
He went
Yeah,
to cough.
So the public
Turn it
safety,
down.
it doesn't change. So if there's folks in our community that are in fear, if they are always welcome, and we want them to call 911. I don't want my words tonight to be misconstrued in any way that says that we're completely hands off. While we are, like I outlined before, we're extremely limited in what we can do. We can certainly be someone there that's a familiar face. We can be, we can keep the peace. We can try to explain or interact with our community members that may be in the area or present when things are happening.
It's officer
And try to be reassuring.
discretion.
I just don't want to give the impression that we can do something that we can't. I think it's really important that we're really upfront with that. But I wouldn't discourage anybody from calling 911 if they're in fear. So absolutely respond.
Thank you, Chief. I just have another slight comment. We can't, and this is just me speaking personally, we can't do things off emotion.
Mm.
And I know emotions are running high all across the board right now,
Mm.
everywhere. But we need to be able to make sound, rash decisions and leave emotions out.
Exactly,
And I'm not
Harry.
saying that's what we're doing, I'm just saying that's what we need to do. Make decisions without emotions being involved in it. And I know it's hard. I mean, it's hard because we're in some hard times right now. And so anyone else have anything else to say? Councilmember Nadia?
I will say that just because, I mean, I myself am emotional, this is an emotional situation. Everybody, like, we're the robots that are not feeling all of the feels right now. But I don't think that it's necessarily mutually exclusive to rational decision making. I think feeling strongly about a thing and still acting within the bounds of logical reason are entirely possible.
And the law.
To Councilmember Dillon's point, you said your question is what's going to be the most effective? And then the first thing that comes to mind is like, what does effective mean? Are you saying effective means ISIS murdering people in the street anymore? Or are we saying ISIS stays out? Effective means ISIS staying out or staying in bounds? Is it they're leaving Minnesota in general? Like what is the efficacy that we're looking for? Because I think we've all sort of established that there's not much that we can do, right? Everybody who is involved in the situation from all levels are trying their very best and are changing very little. So if what is effective to you is we are stopping ICE activity, I don't know that there's anything that we can do that's going to be effective, so we might as well just stop right. But to me, efficacy looks like
We don't have started law
our
enforcement.
stated needs. So Councilor Dugan, you mentioned a city nearby, whose residents asked specifically that their council do nothing. And if that city happens to be Columbia Heights, respectfully, that's not working. Because Columbia Heights is getting absolutely ravaged despite making those statements and taking those stands. So then their argument loses credibility from my perspective. I love the idea of authorizing staff to act alone, partnering with neighboring cities. I think that is exactly the route we should be going, right? Now is not the time and it's not the climate. Like, we're not going to be able to offer every single decision the same due diligence that we would in times that aren't right now. So anything that we can do to expedite processes, fully support. You also mentioned, Councilmember Dillon, that one of the cities you were speaking to made statements with regard to sort of how welcoming of the community they are. I don't remember the exact language. But that to me sounds like the sanctuary ordinances, right? Which I think is also something that we very much should do. If we're not going to say limit federal enforcement, what we are going to say is all residents, regardless of immigration and refugee status, are welcome here, will be treated equally. Like, we can make that statement. Obviously it's true, obviously it's the way that our city staff operates already, but let's be real explicit about it. Because, again, I keep going back to this, is like, we're taking a stand, and whether that stand is going to practically have any impact, it will very, very, I think, have a very distinct impact on essentially how our residents feel about the city that they're living in. We are not living in power.
Thank you. I think that that's a very strong position, and I think that that's exactly what this community did. They actually had a resolution.
Look at this comment.
back in the
Harry says, go back to basics, be good people, report crime, all the same people paying taxes for a safe community.
Strong statement to help at least our residents understand we want to do as much as we can to support you. This one step that has questionable whether we can enforce it and risk around enforcing it. Things I think that we can do as a city, besides declaring our support and what we want it to look like, we can also be helping our residents.
Thank you for the hearts. Please subscribe and share. Keep commenting.
How can we help people who need rent help, who need food help, who need driving to the community help? And we have a community-based organization right now that's up and running and doing that. And in Columbia Heights, they
we don't have to do
assist
one.
the residents, right? It's not the stop ice that I know people would like to see, but it is,
What?
how do we help our residents recover from the trauma that's happening in our community?
Then be a sanctuary city.
Mayor Pro Tem Randall, I have heard from.
Wendy's hand is up.
some ice in our community.
Wendy's hand is up.
And at bus stops. They have, residents who have been here or open forum have had ice show up at their door. And so they are here. I do believe that because I've heard it. And again, I will go to hearing other cities testify to the presence of ice at student bus stops, right? And volumes and volumes of ice agents. And the recommendation that the schools are saying is we have to get more parents there to be witnesses and to have a presence, right?
But it's not the only responsibility of the parents.
No,
I totally understand how to get information and how to believe it, because how it's presented sometimes is not always
and
as it seems.
That's
I've been
true.
honest. I mean, I truly don't believe anything I hear. I mean, well, not see, but hear. I literally don't. Because there's so much out there. I mean, from everyone. We've
Such a
got
great
this,
big
we've got
world.
that, and you know what?
It's a
I
great
have
big
not
world
been-
out there.
You know, I'm not out in the community every day looking either.
Oh.
I mean, I'm not. I work.
And I know we hear from businesses, right, who are taxed by having employees who don't feel safe to come to work, right? And-
That would be me.
He's a clown.
That would be me. Oh, absolutely I can relate. I can relate, and like I said, I've been in that situation, actually still in that situation.
Hmm.
But we can't fix this. I mean, we can have solutions, we can try to do the best we can do. I'm not for ordinances, I'm just not. But anything other than ordinances, if we can find a way to
Did you
help
pass
with communication or giving people a lifeline to where they can and can't go, I have no issues with that. I mean, I think that's the best route to go about it. And so that's just my opinion. And I'm sorry I'm so doubtful, but I just can't.
Wendy's had her hand up for a minute.
So Mayor Pro Tem, to that point, I ask you a question.
I know.
If you had seen ice enforcement with your own eyes, would you have a different stance today?
No.
Okay, so then what would it take for you to feel justified in it?
If it was as bad as people make it out to be or make it seem to be, I still wouldn't change my position about here. Not here, I wouldn't.
With this separation ordinance.
No, I wouldn't. I
Mayor
would not
Webster
change my
just
mind.
put her hand down.
I wouldn't.
She's had her hand up and she put it down. He's supposed to see it, but he didn't say anything.
To take action in the best interest if there are other communities and counties moving forward.
That depends on the action. That depends on the actions that they're proposing. I'm not comfortable with city getting involved with it at all, if I'm being honest.
A clown.
It's small, but what I'd like to be able to see is the evidence, objective evidence that where a city has taken a stronger stance to codify something that prevents certain behavior, and they're able to perform to it and not be penalized because they're violating the Intergovernmental Immunity Act. So,
Here he goes with his
is there
questions.
any actual examples that's actually worked for sure?
So all of these cities that have separation ordinances,
Tell him.
Like all is who?
they're, Minneapolis, St. Paul, only in Mankato, Minnesota, they just are drafting theirs.
Duluth is getting there too.
And then DC, let's see, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Cook County, Illinois, Los Angeles County, there are cities that are doing it, and I think we we keep talking about like, how are we enforcing? Enforcing what? We're saying what is and is not allowed on city property, so you're waiving, are you asking like ICE has staged on city property and then the police have gone and kicked them out? We don't know if ICE has even tried, right? The point is, this is what we're not going to allow. So we keep talking about enforcement, but these are things that we're already doing. Like, the police already has a policy in place, a long-standing policy that they don't ask about immigration status, they don't ask about, they don't maintain that information. So like, when we talk about enforcement, like, we're already doing it.
Well, my question is this, if we're already doing these things, then why do we need this?
Because it's a stance to take out loud in the face of, tyranny. I'm gonna go with that word. That's why, from my perspective.
Councilmember Dillon.
So, tyranny is a good word, it's the word that actually was one of the words used. Discussion with Representative McCall and the staff. And she talked about state and federal policy and rules about what you can and can't govern. And she talked about the only thing that right now, the tool we have with the given state of our Congress and our executive, the only thing that can move right now is community action.
That's a false dichotomy.
Jan, you
There's
asked
not
about
one
what
thing.
kind of evidence
It's
is there, and I think
multiple
it's a good
things.
question, because right
You need
now,
multiple things,
what I
not
see
one thing.
happening with Mayor Fry and Governor Walz, you know, they're making statements that sure they feel really good to people who want to see a statement, but they're also being sued by the Department of Justice.
They're leaders.
And I think as a governing body, is the risk of that potentially happening worth the outcomes that we get?
This is shameful.
I think there are many more things we can do as a city that could be more effective. You know, one of the questions that were submitted in this, how does the police department plan to use this moment to rebuild trust and strengthen relationships with communities of color? I think that is really
He's gonna say,
great
we already do
opportunity
that.
for us to
All
move
the
forward,
Negroes love us.
and that doesn't necessarily need any kind of policy that I'm looking for, right? It's a learning opportunity for us. I know, Chief, there are many other communities that are talking about that, many other police departments, I'm sure, that are talking about that. Have you been in conversations with other police departments? And is there opportunity for us to learn how they're approaching, supporting their communities?
I'm in conversations probably every other day, so through the Ramsey County
Exactly.
Chiefs of Police Association, the Hannibal County, the Minnesota Chiefs, it's been a source of constant conversation, planning, and we're all dealing with the same things. And trying to maintain strong relationships with our community members during a difficult time like this. And I just had the opportunity before I came out here tonight to talk to a couple of our officers that are working the night shift tonight and ask them what the impact has been on them and what they're feeling in the community. And
Because it's about them.
overall, they feel, at least from these two officers, that it's been really been, they feel like they still have that strong relationship and that connection. And they're still doing the same things we've been doing.
Why
like
listen
going
to the
businesses,
community members who come in
stopping
and speak
visiting community
when you can
members,
have the chief tell
and
us about what the officers
That's really
think?
been a really good approach for us. And that's the kind of policing that we've done
For
for a
them.
very, very long time. We're being very intentional about having these one-on-one conversations with our community members. Even above and beyond some of the different events we do, I think we get a lot of benefit, and our community gets a lot of benefit, but just
Ridiculous.
stopping and
PR
talking to people in neighborhoods,
opportunities.
going into
This is a
the
great
Starbucks
big
and-
PR opportunity
and,
for
you know,
police because
don't, you know,
now
it's
the hatred's going towards somebody else.
maintaining
Like,
those strong
stopping at
relationships.
nothing.
I can't speak directly to what other police departments are doing community-based wise.
Oh,
But I
I
know that
looked
some of the
into
same
that at all.
conversations that we're having tonight are some of the same conversations that they're having in their communities too.
Thanks, Chief. So Charlie, what are you looking for from us tonight? Mayor Webster, do you have anything to add?
I do. One of the questions I have for council is, again, I'm thinking about what we can do. And there is a coalition of communities that are coming together, and they're forming to, one, restore safety, order, trust, and a sense of normalcy to our communities, to uphold the rule of law and due process, and to have strength in numbers, and to present a bipartisan statewide front. So my question is, like 2 weeks ago when I signed on to the letter to the governor to consider a moratorium on evictions during this time, I'm curious, so that we can move faster, this was sent to both myself and city manager. Is this council okay with when these opportunities come forward, that the city manager and I can respond to them and join these coalitions so we can have a greater voice in what our end goal is?
Yes. Very much so, yes.
Yes, is there a way that we can learn from what's being taken place? Can we sit in silently and listen for Zoom meetings? I mean, I would certainly be interested in that.
That's good.
It looks like the Zoom meeting was actually yesterday, and I apologize, I've been homesick, so I missed it. But I will forward this to City Manager Yanker, and I'll ask him to forward it to all of you so that you can see it. And we'll, it's the Cities for Safe and Stable Communities. And we can move forward.
Yeah.
No, I too have received other information from county representatives as we've had discussions. I had an email from a resident, and I emailed our state representative and county commissioner, and there's been information in that. I think there's lots of opportunity for us to learn more, and I guess I would ask then, is the avenue for us to take and start feeding those things to city manager and mayor so that you can evaluate and decide on best next steps?
Yeah, excuse me. I would think that would be a good approach, because this stuff pops up quickly and we're asked to respond quickly. So to use the example that Mayor Webster mentioned, that meeting popped up yesterday. We were both home with colds, but we were able to at least respond quickly. We don't, like you talked earlier, we don't necessarily always have time to wait for another council meeting to discuss and flush it all through. But the more that we can participate in these kind of efforts collectively and going up above our level is something we can do. That's an actual action to advocate.
But it's not committing us anything, it's just conversation, correct?
Correct. It is advocacy. Right.
Advocacy.
Well, advocating, I guess that's not maybe to explain it more. I mean, collectively advocating to get in front of the people who actually have influence over what's happening. Is a better way to say it.
I'll go along with that.
Sure.
He still doesn't
Mayor,
understand.
Your question, I just have an idea to throw out.
Sure.
For council to consider, listening to the discussion and what I think is hoped for out of this effort by Councilmember El Nadi, rather than going down a path of ordinances and policies, which, and I understand the interpretation around this, but when ordinances are passed, that's communicating to staff, we're asking you to fulfill this. Okay, so rather than going down that path, would council and Councilmember El Nadi, would you be interested in a resolution that's drafted that states the kinds of things that you're looking for, that shows that stance, that communicates
Absolutely.
what you want without committing us to try to do something we can't actually fulfill.
Oh, yeah.
Respectfully, whether it's an executive order, whether it's a resolution, whether it's an ordinance, I don't care what form it takes. I just think it's important that we put it out there, put ourselves out there.
And we'll have to work on wording along that to balance desire with practicality. But and again, I'm just throwing out as an option given the discussion.
I think it's a nice compromise. Yeah.
I just want the public to know that I also came here with that mindset of what we just talked about here as well, and hoping that discussion would come up. If not, I was gonna bring it up, but it came up, so I'm happy for that.
Yeah, Minneapolis' staging, is an executive order. They're not our ordinances, they take different forms.
I'm very, never mind.
Just
And I will,
that's new staff.
I will offer to send you charts and examples I've seen.
Yeah, this would be one very much for kind of council to draft, right, which isn't necessarily typical. But it would be stating a stance, stating a position, and between you five would have to balance out how we'd like that to read.
Okay. Is everyone on board with that?
Yes.
Yeah, consensus?
Yep.
All right, there we have it. Councilmember Dooley.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So there were other aspects inside of the documentation here.
This is a positive. This is a positive thing. They've moved to wanting to do something. So,
In looking at what other cities are doing and thinking about, again, risks to our community.
do you want to get going or no?
The moratorium on eviction is
we
nothing
can
we
get
can
going.
do, and I think supporting, writing to the governor and trying to influencing the legislature is certainly something we individually can do. I think as a city, collectively, maybe, I don't know, if we as a city council want to show our support in that way, but certainly I am going to be writing and supporting those things. And when I think about the execution of something like towing and perhaps, not towing from a safety perspective, but having grace on the Phoenix Collective, I think about, the city, the rules that the city has to follow and around public information, access to public information, and the process around trying to get something in place to assist a particular resident. I think it might be better served being within our community aid structure that's already in place. There is an organization already set up, they're private, so they are not bound by the same public data policy. But
What?
just like there's rent assistance, there could be other types of assistance. So I think as we understand what the needs of our community are, certainly helping people find access to resources is something else we can do. I don't know that the city has a role in that, but individually
She has a way of like,
helping people find those
there's an agreement and she chips at it and weakens it with the last word.
Yeah, just following up on what Councilman Dooley said, and I saw that, to where we capped rent control. Who tried that? Minneapolis or St. Paul? Or both? Probably both.
What is he talking about?
The point being is, and I made this discussion about.
It has
maybe 4 or
nothing
5
to do
years
with
ago.
this
Maybe
discussion.
longer than
It's
that.
not rent control.
You know,
It's eviction.
I know.
when I was managing property,
He's very
and
silly.
everything came about, and everything was budgeted. And if you
So he
start
doesn't manage
putting
properties
rent freeze
anymore.
on people's rent, guess what's gonna happen? Well, that refrigerator that they need, they're not gonna get that refrigerator. Or the new stove that they need, they may get that in maybe a month. Or six
Oh my
months down the
God.
line.
This
There's
is
always a
absolutely
cost of stuff.
ridiculous.
I mean, and when I hear people, say freeze rent, it's not that simple. Or put a rent on freeze.
He doesn't even rent,
The landlord or the owner.
but he's making sure that people who rent are not
So either
out.
way, that tenant is gonna suffer, or that resident is gonna suffer, either with a new refrigerator or a new stove. That's just how it works. I mean, it's naive to think that, you know, that landlords or owners are just gonna freeze rent and no one's not gonna pay for it. They always find a way to pay for it, and usually it's the very residents that people are trying to help that end up paying the price.
This
I
guy
see it in my
is a
own
clown.
house. And so there's something to think about when we talk about going down the road.
No, I said this guy is a clown.
Councilmember Knight.
You just even know her name.
Right, so with regard to the tow fees, understanding that we are not in charge of, private contracts, that we cannot make landlords, not evict people, unless we have some property of our own, which we don't. So, but with regard to the tow fees, I think one of the most, from my perspective, heartwarming things that has been the silver lining is how miraculously our community has, and how quickly and effectively they have come together. They have built networks that are decentralized, that are self-sufficient, and that get everyone's needs met in, it is one of the most amazing shows of empathy and compassion. That said, I don't think that it should be up to our residents and the goodness of their hearts to front the cost for all of this. We're all paying, right? We're all trying to help our neighbors just make it through, whether it's rent, whether it's groceries, whether it's rides to school, whatever it is. I think looking into the city bearing some of the brunt for tow fees, I don't know how many cars we've been getting towed, but I don't want us, the answer to be, well, the community has done an amazing job, so let's just leave it to them. We are a part of it, right? And so I want us to take some of the responsibility to the extent that we are able. I'd like us to look into fronting the tow fees costs. I know that it's not in the budget, but you know what, paying for my neighbor's rent is also not in my budget. So we're all just doing what we can right now.
That's real.
One, I think, absolutely, I understand that position. And my concern really is about the public record requirements from the city actually doing it.
She's always worried about things that don't make sense
They actually
or not related.
budgeted and took money and actually donated it to the private entity that actually manages it, can do it.
And the private entity is gonna be her friend.
So that's one way to do that. I think one of the things that we need to understand is what's the opportunity on our streets? How many of our residents are living in spaces that street parking is their only option? And I think understanding what the risks and needs are is a good first step in trying to assess how do we go about doing that.
Yeah, so, and just so I understand this correctly, so you're saying for the city to pick up that tab?
So if I understand, City Manager Younger's point, because the towing is done by private companies,
Okay.
we can't force them to not ask for money. And so what would happen essentially is the city would have to pay it. We don't want our residents to pay it, the city would have to pay the private company for that tow fee.
And you'd be targeting only the people who are at risk of being apprehended if they were to go out in public to move their vehicles. Like, it's not.
Immigration.
You wanna like this.
It's immigration. It's people who are snatched.
Or individuals who have been detained.
That one.
So we turn to a welfare state. A welfare state, basically.
I like to think of it as helping our neighbors in times of need.
Okay.
Who is paying for the city taxes?
I think as
We
long
are.
as it's
So I guess we're
a
first aid.
people
Lord
that
willing.
were a result of an ICE action, then I'm okay with that. But
That's
I don't
right.
wanna just have a blanket where people can get their toll.
And I understand that, but
That's
that's an
right.
awful act to be putting that on the whole community. I mean, this is taxpayer dollars. Or am I listening to this wrong?
No, but
These are taxpayer dollars.
our community is paying already. They're just doing it informally. Neighbors are paying for each other's groceries, they're paying for rent.
That's
they're
right.
fronting money.
That's right.
If nothing else, it would be worth an ask to the community, is it something you'd be willing to front? In this
gonna do that, we're gonna make sure we get every resident. So what we just don't pick and choose.
Like we usually do.
Yeah.
That's the piece that's
And is it
missing.
a need that's only here when we counter snow and we
Mhm.
Is there a way to find out, is there an actual?
Well, the same. Let's do a study. Let's do a study, Charlie.
Cars left, do we have specific, or any examples of that?
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's in St. Anthony only. I mean, I don't wanna
They're
make a
not.
decision on something.
We don't
that
ask
we don't
immigration
have.
questions.
Yeah, I mean, it just.
I'm not tracking it.
I'm not aware of any in St. Anthony. We had one incident in Falcon Heights where there was a vehicle that was involved in a crash with a ICE vehicle. And the person was taken to jail and the car was in the middle of the road and that was impounded. We also had another car that was involved in that same incident that was left legally parked, and one of our officers that was called to that scene had taken some extra time to make some arrangements so that a family member could come get that car. So typically we try to do that anyways, that's across the board, but I don't know of any specific in St. Anthony.
I think she brought in the towing, like as subterfuge, you know, so we don't talk about the actual thing,
Not towing a vehicle.
like a resolution. We're talking about towing fees. No one gives a fuck about it.
I think people would not really give a fuck about towing if they're
Thank
not
you.
having to worry about finding somewhere to sleep
Yes.
or eat.
Right.
That, from staff's perspective, creates
Or
an issue. Okay,
sending
so
their kids to school
then it comes
without
to
them
the
getting
towing
snatched.
fee. We're not a city that charges the towing fee directly. That's handled between the car owner and the towing company. So thus your only option left, if you wanna try to affect this kind of situation, then is to subsidize the cost of tow and storage or storage. That's what you're left with. So that's what this comes down to. So I just wanna make sure that's clear. That's what you would be talking about, is basically how much money would you like to allocate if these situations come up, and we're able to verify the situation without then also inadvertently opening up someone to have their information out in public because of what we have to do in record keeping to pay the bill. So,
And so maybe this was, that you're aware of when vehicles are obstructing traffic, right? That's something that maybe.
Not unless we call.
Administrative needs to get moved, and it's part of our process right now for incidents involving ICE.
Why not just-
Presence in that community.
But as I hear it, we don't have an example yet.
Right, that's right.
From the community listening sessions.
You can alleviate one concern. Right? It may not have happened yet, but if you're worried about what happens if your car gets towed, how would you even pay for that, how would you get that impound? Then us saying, don't worry about that, we got you, is about that, right? Even if that happens.
I agree.
Mayor Pro Tem, I also agree. I think this is the step that our city can take to relieve some of the pressure that some of our residents are under. And if, as is happening in other cities, they are pulled from their vehicle and when they're driving down the street, and then that vehicle is left in lane of traffic, it becomes a public safety issue. But if we can help cover some of the fees of the storage, and it reminds me when we talked about the dangerous dog ordinance, that if a resident doesn't claim the dog after a certain period of time, then the city incurs those fees anyway. And so I think similarly, to me it's similar in that we can support residents when they are detained and until they hopefully are released, they at least know that their car is safe in a lot and that the city will pay for those charges.
That doesn't affect me, but I think it's good.
Anything else? Anyone else?
No, not anything else.
So how are we deciding on this?
There's no voting.
well, Mayor Pro Tem, excuse me, so it sounds like council consensus is to collectively draft a resolution with the stance, and that can be done basically as soon as it's ready. So we can go down that path.
As soon as it's ready.
You've given at least verbal, okay for staff to, and the mayor to join into collective efforts, as long as we feel it's appropriate. And then as staff, we can look at, subsidizing, towing and storage fees in some way,
So it's just looking into it, not committing, correct?
We could do another council action to kind of officially commit to it once we were able to set up some parameters around it. Hopefully it wouldn't be too terribly elaborate, but just something,
Okay.
so we know what we'd be committing to.
Okay. Are we all on board with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
All right. Well,
What do we think about, sorry, and one more thing, what do we think about us joining in already existing lawsuits? Whether they be at the state level, or otherwise.
Watch this.
So the example that I'm thinking of is the Attorney General's lawsuit against, the Trump administration. That two largest cities have signed on to. Mankato submitted an amicus brief,
Mm.
which is friend of the court, right? They're not a part of the direct part of the lawsuit, but they want to state their position. I like that. It's something I would love to see us do.
And what does that lawsuit do in layman's terms?
He has no
The
idea.
lawsuit is to end Operation Metro.
Surge.
That's the goal of the Attorney General's lawsuit. Our position would just simply be file a document that says we agree, much more elaborately.
That's the friend of the court. And I listened to
Brief.
City had that discussion, and that was certainly something that their council agreed on. And it was in a community that didn't share the same political.
Bipartisan.
society.
Bipartisan.
we have certainly gotten pretty political here, so. I'm not joining any lawsuit. And I have no issues with, with the rest of the council, knowing that I'm not joining any lawsuit.
Clown.
No disrespect to anyone else. It's just not something I do, it's not something I believe in.
Mayor Pro Tem and council, how do we feel about an amicus brief?
I'm in support.
What kind of brief?
The
Amicus.
amicus brief is the front of the court, but just with her.
Well, I'm not a lawyer, what's the difference?
We have one of those.
You could probably describe it better than me. But if you were to intervene in a lawsuit, you're now a party to the lawsuit. So if there are decisions, they could affect you. If you do a friend of the court or amicus brief, to use the Latin term, you're saying, hey, we have an interest in this is our opinion, and there's a process you can go through, so the court has to take into account your opinion. But you're not a party to the plaintiff, or party to the lawsuit, you're not something where an order could come down and say that you have to do this or you can't do that. It's you saying, no, we want our voice to be heard.
So we have no liability
No
whatsoever.
liability in that.
No legal liability.
I'm okay with that. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Mayor, any other questions?
So to be clear, we would be okay with our council drafting an amicus brief? That would be the next step.
All right. Anything else? Am I missing anything? Future work session topics? Or you wanna wait? We'll wait to do that. All right. All right. If that's all we have, work session adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
All right. Bye. God bless.